we've been thinking about asking you all to play with us for a while. I think we asked you.
Yeah. That's true.
It would be cool if we had the power to ask you guys.
Yeah, it's like, let Wilco know we're opening for them.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
we've been thinking about asking you guys to play for a
Yeah.
while.
It just happened that you guys were the ones to make the first move, but
yeah, well, it's nice that it was mutual and that you said yes. So that's really exciting for us. Been on my radar for a little bit, maybe even a little bit before the record. I think that maybe you talked about. Did you talk to John from our band at one point?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And that was he said that when he basically said that he told you that you got it all figured out, that you shouldn't listen to us at all. Like you're doing all of the right things, so just ignore his advice is how he relayed it to me.
Oh, that's so lovely. Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong, Penelope and Nora, but I think that we called him for like just advice about like being a musician and like doing like playing shows because we kind of got like thrown into everything like very quickly and we were just like anybody that knows anything about how to do this, like we need to talk to them.
yeah, that's really sweet. I mean, he's a good guy to talk to. He's been doing it for a long time.
We're trying to focus on writing right now.
Yeah.
So things have been a bit more calm, which has
Mhm.
been very nice for us.
We've kind of been in the mindset of like we need to focus on writing and like it's okay to say no to shows because we're focusing. And then we're like, but we won't say no if it's like an opportunity of a lifetime. And then it's just like Wilco comes and asks us to play in Chicago. And we're like,
Okay, the record can come in a couple of
yeah,
years.
it'll come later.
Yeah, I think that there's a fear when I think I still have the fear sometimes that if I say no to some things, that nobody's going to ask me anymore to do stuff. I think it's just the nature of just really loving getting to do this and not wanting. I don't know. I've always tried to make decisions based on what allows me to get to do this for the longest amount of time, and sometimes that actually ends up being you have to kind of be disciplined and say no because then you're kind of protecting your ability to be inspired and actually want to do it. And
Yeah, I was thinking about that just because, we had never had like real touring experience for like weeks at a time kind of situation until this summer, which obviously you guys have, I'm sure, done way longer tours than that. But I think experiencing that for the first time made me realize like, oh, over the course of a lifetime, like how do you even keep this up? And I almost think that like the way to keep it up is to do it less. Otherwise, like, how could you possibly like, I mean, it's just a really crazy lifestyle. And I was there thinking like, oh my God, if I ever have a family, like how am I gonna like do
right.
it?
That was a big decision based on exactly what I was just saying is like, the business side of the decision at that time when I was first starting to have a family would have been, you should go out for as long as you can at once because you make more money when you go out for a long tour than you do when you go out for a short tour, and then you have to start up all of the expenses of starting up again. That's not the most efficient way to use your time financially. But we made a decision early on to never really go out for more than 2 or 3 weeks, and always have 2 or 3 weeks in between each tour, so that we could all have like a home life. We could all have like a life that we're living to write about and think about, and not just be road dogs. And, but again, that's like, there were people pulling their hair out at the time that were, from the label and management and stuff like that. That's a really inefficient way to do it monetarily. But I think over the long Hall, it ended up being we still toured a lot, but it kept us a little bit more sane, I think, than some of our. I don't know. It allowed us it gave us a chance to maintain some normalcy.
I feel like because the band started out as like a high school thing with kind of no huge dreams, it's kind of grounding to also know that like if the dream of being on the road and going places, like if it's not the dream anymore, like we can also just go back to Chicago and do it on the down low and for fun. You know what I mean? Like we also know that the band can operate like that, because that is how it started for 3 years or something. So
I've been telling myself that for 30 years, or at least 30 years, that like, you know, if this all went away, does my relationship with music still remain intact in a way that's fulfilling and, you know, satisfying to me? And it's really hard for me to tell at this point because so much of my life is built up around, you know, of an apparatus of, you know, studio and things like that. But I think at its core, I think it's really good to keep asking yourself that question. Do you still get a really good feeling from playing your guitar and singing or sitting at your instrument and hitting things? Right. My initial experience playing music would have been closer to, you know, like Belleville, Illinois, and St. Louis area with Uncle Tupelo before Wilco. So by the time I moved to Chicago, I had a record deal. That's not to say that Chicago didn't play a role in my formative years of making music. It's still pretty early where I got to experience the Chicago music scene, and my wife had this amazing club that I spent a lot of time at even before I moved to Chicago, Lounge Acts. And so it was a totally new thing to have a space to play and I don't know, get to see so many other musicians. Definitely helped me grow. But compared to New York or LA at the time, being able to afford a loft space, it was reasonable in Chicago. And so that, I think, was a big fulcrum or a big turning point in my life, getting a place to leave my gear set up. And so you could just keep going and working and practicing and playing and recording.
Chicago's kind of all we know in terms of how to come up in a band. Like we only know how that kind of happens in Chicago. And I mean, we just started playing open mics where like the first half was acoustic and then there's an intermission and then you have the band.
Town Teen open mic. I'm sure maybe you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I also think, I'm sure you saw this with your sons, but it's just like growing up in Chicago from such a young age, there was like so much accessible to us to like go to shows. And also a lot of, when we were like 13, there were a lot of older teenagers who we saw in bands, playing shows, doing the thing, emailing Sugar Records, can we play here? Stuff like that, you know? And so it seemed really possible and normal to do as a kid.
Right.
And I don't think like, it wasn't really until after COVID we started being, like once we started being able to play shows after COVID with our friends and we were a little bit older, I feel like we started to kind of like claim this like, oh, we're the young scene kind of thing, but it was never united like that until more recently. But I think people from, like, it's really special to be so young and for that to seem like something you can do.
Sure.
And also to go to a show where all the bands are underage and the whole crowd is underage and and they're singing songs of your, like, that's just so powerful. And so I think we feel lucky to come from that.
Yeah, that's the purest, to me, that's like the purest scene forming formula is like a few older kids give an example of, this is a cool strategy for living. You know, this you could do worse than this, and a bunch of other people absolutely do see it as like, oh, well, that's just something you can do. I mean, it doesn't occur to everybody. without that example that you can form a band. But it should be like a normal thought. It should be like a normal thing. Like, but it's also kind of funny. Bands are kind of funny. It's like, like we've got a gang, like we've got a team and we've named ourselves, and
it's like in Chicago, when we all lived there, it was definitely like we would go hang out and be like, all right, well, like we're gonna go hang out with Lifeguard and Free Range will be there, and like all just like we would like all of our friends, we would just be listing them as groups because they were all bands.
When is Freak getting here? Are they running late? Like,
no, seriously. And like it was nice because it also was able to kind of let you have an excuse to like spend all your time with a very small group of people. Because like the amount of times like I would just be like, oh, like just hanging out with Horsegirl, like, oh, the old ball and chain, like got all the business to do. But it's literally just like like we are best friends, and like we get to do this together and get to hang out and name ourselves.
Sorry, it's just going to be Horsegirl tonight.
Serious?
I know everyone thinks we're writing, but we're actually just watching Survivor.
Yep.
Right. Yep. Which I'm sorry, I think that is probably writing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell everybody like, oh, we're gonna tour for 3 weeks, 3 weeks off. We'll be writing, but really, we're just watching Survivor.
Sleeping.
I'm a big believer that you're writing when you don't know you're writing, and I don't know. There just isn't that. Even knowing you have to be somewhere at 4 o'clock for a sound check or something like that takes a certain amount of mental energy from just like just sitting and watching Survivor and thinking about. I don't know. I think you have to be really good at doing nothing to spend time with your imagination.
There was something about tour that I like didn't anticipate, which is it just feels like you're untethered from any sense of time outside of like the 4 people you're with. And because we would be going from, like time would be changing a little bit, but it just felt like I don't even know what time I woke up. Like we got home, it was 1, right. But then we're eating at weird hours, and it just feels like it. Like I even remember like my parents trying to call me to catch up, and I just felt like that was the hardest task in the world. There was just something about it where like I couldn't do anything. It just felt like I couldn't plan for what time. It just was like so separate from everybody else's schedules outside of the 4 people in.
Yeah, the days of the week don't mean anything.
Every day is Saturday.
Every day is Saturday.
Shows, but not you. I don't know.
Yeah, like condensing. Like, what's been going on? How's the tour going? Answering those questions is like, it's impossible. But I mean, but then when you get home and you decompress a little bit, and that's one of the reasons I think it's important to get home and decompress a little bit from time to time, then the stories start to emerge, like the things that, oh man, this happened at this truck stop in Iowa. I can't believe like this, whatever it is. Then you start to be able to kind of pick through the experiences and be able to relate them to somebody else. But yeah, in the moment, it's like asking somebody on a really fast like roller coaster ride or something, how's it going?
Penelope said Glastonbury. That was like the worst day of our lives. But
also like a crazy awesome thing to get to do.
But now I'm thinking about it and thinking about how miserable we were, and it was like cold and rainy, and none of us were prepared, and it was just like.
So you had the classic Glastonbury experience.
Of course, but I think about it now, and I'm like, oh my god, I miss touring so much. Like it was just so much fun to be out there and also go through something like terrible and have your best friends there and just get to like.
I know it really creates like a familial like love. Yeah,
most people, I think, probably organize their lives to try and have some control over having one kind of day as much as possible, understandably, because unpleasantness is unpleasant. But I do think that it enhances your ability to appreciate the good stuff when you've kind of put yourself out there and force yourself to confront the possibility that things are going to go really, really wrong. Well, I've never seen Horsegirl live, so I'm excited to get to see you a bunch of times, and get to know you all better. That'd be fun. It's exciting to get to know. I love getting to know younger bands. I just feel like I don't know. I've always been good at being older, even when I was younger. So I don't know.
That's awesome. And as far as I know, we're pretty good at being young.
Seems like it.
I think we're very excited. I mean, I've never seen Wilco. I don't know about you guys.
I've seen Wilco.
Oh well, naturally. But I'm excited for the same things, and also just like I said, it's gonna be our little trip back home to Chicago, and
right.
Parents will be there.
I do feel like, as a young Chicago band, Wilco is kind of like the Chicago band. And it is just like a really special thing to go home at this point in our lives and play something like this with you guys.
Oh yeah.
We've only played with Chicago bands who are kids, and now it's going to be weird that the first Chicago band we're playing with that's not kids is the Chicago band.
The Chicago band.
Yeah.
The one with those buildings on the cover.
Oh yeah. We built those buildings with our bare hands.
They're the local buildings.
Built this city on rock and roll, man.
That's true.
Guys, should I tell my fun Wilco fact?
Sure.
Do it.
I have never seen Wilco, but I was playing in a show of Wilco covers for School of Rock Chicago. And
oh wow.
It was pretty awesome. Glenn showed up. And all my friends, and I was about to get on stage and drum heavy metal drummer, and I was so nervous because I could not do the intro because it's hard. And then right before I get on stage, everybody's like, "Oh my god, the drummer from Wilco's here," and I'm like, "Guys!" And then I go up there and I fuck it up.
Oh my god. Oh
And it was really terrible.
This is your chance to redeem yourself, Gigi.
Exactly. When we do our heavy metal drummer cover.
Yeah. We'll have you out on heavy metal drummer.
Oh.